I'll be sharing some interesting stories of my time as a 911 operator and dispatcher. This was one of my first calls. Contrary to common belief, only 10% of the calls we get weekly are actual emergencies. It's about 3 a.m. Man on the phone is pissed drunk, slurring his words like a fucking idiot. Some fucking dog just fucking bit my leg. Sir, is the dog currently near your location? No, but he's about to be. I can literally hear the guy running. I'm gonna find that dog and I'm gonna piss on it. We have just dispatched an ambulance towards your location. Stay away from the dog. I'm gonna fucking piss on the dog. I'm losing my shit at this point. Sir, I really need you to stay away from the dog. Hear a dog growling. Hear the distinct sound of piss. Hear the man screaming in pain as the dog bites him. He hung up. Time was about 4 p.m. 911, state your emergency. Very feminine, teenage voice on the other end. Very panicked voice. Yeah, I have an issue. She was silent for a few seconds. I was, experimenting. What's your emergency? There's a ball of Play-Doh stuck up my... She was silent again. Didn't even need her to continue. You'd be surprised how common this issue is. Is there an adult near you that's aware of the issue? My mom would kill me. Listen, my friend told me this is going to poison me. Should I be worried? It's non-toxic, but you need to get it removed as soon as possible. You're going to have to tell an adult, or I'll dispatch an ambulance to your location. Your choice. She hung up, one of the few times I didn't call back. Now, a bit more action. 11 p.m. There's someone outside my window. That was the first thing I heard. She said it before I even had the chance to say anything. How close are you to your window? Are they carrying any weapons? I don't know. It's just fucking staring at me. Always staring at me. Ma'am, an officer is currently on his way to your location. I need you to be as far away from the window as you can. Are your doors locked? Is it a familiar face? My doors are always locked. And yes, it's always there, fucking smiling at me. This time, it's closer than usual. Does it have a name, ma'am? Who is it? She stopped replying, but the line was still on. I was fucking freaking out, but had to keep my voice collected. Police officer calls me about 15 minutes later, saying this was a schizophrenic patient. Still scares me shitless. Woman calls around 3 p.m. An armed man was currently in the process of hijacking a neighbor's car. She confirmed that he had seen her through the glass door. Times like these, it's very fucking difficult to remain calm. Already had about 2 officers dispatched to her location. All I had to do was keep her calm. Officer tells me he's outside, waiting to escort her out from the backyard. Let her know. She's still on the phone with me. He's not there. Turns out the fucker was a few minutes away, and he lied for no apparent reason. Basically, she was outside, and a target, all thanks to that shitty officer. Tell her to go back inside and lock the doors. Officer finally arrives. Couldn't report him because it would fuck up my position. 8 a.m. in the morning. Little girl, sounded about 6 years old, calls in, crying and obviously panicking. What's wrong? Daddy's hurting mommy. Turns out she heard screams coming from her parents' room. Made her press the phone to the door to confirm my suspicions. Her mom was moaning. The little girl just assumed the locked door meant her dad was hitting his wife. Sent out a cop just in case this was actually a domestic violence case, even though I was pretty sure it wasn't. And here's why most of the people I work alongside of are on antidepressants, and why I'm no fun at parties. It's 6 a.m. on a Friday. Woman sobbing on the phone with muffled yells in the background. My baby fell in the pool was the only thing I made out through the heaving. 2 years old. I was talking the father through CPR. I can hear the mother screaming how she only took her eyes off of the baby for a minute. Apparently, the baby's name was Kayla because that's all the mother started screaming afterwards. Baby was not responding to CPR. I was on the phone until the ambulance called, telling me the baby was long gone. I didn't sleep for a week. I'm trying to balance the funny and the sad stories, but I guess there's more tragic than happy. It was Saturday afternoon. A teenage girl. Her voice was very tight. She took deep breaths before speaking. She was obviously in a lot of pain. Her name was Maddie, 16 years old. She fell off of her brother's treehouse. She tried to break the fall with her arms, and she obviously sounded like they were broken. She said no one was home, but she felt really dizzy. She was seeing double, and her nose was bleeding with no direct impact to the nose. Well, fuck.jpg. She was a trooper, and she was taking it well for someone who had fell from such a high spot. She sounded very collected, and she really did sound like a sweetheart. She kept telling me how sleepy she was. I kept stalling her with conversations about school and friends while her replies got slower and slower. She stopped replying to me 5 minutes before the ambulance arrived. Internal bleeding was the cause of death. She sounded like such a good fucking person, and it's terrible getting this emotionally invested. The fact that I was the last one to talk to her fucked me up. 3 a.m. Very hoarse voice on the other end of the phone. Indicated the victim had been screaming and or was extremely dehydrated. Her voice was a quiet whisper. Dispatched officers to the location while I was hearing the info. She said she was shoved into a car while she was on her way to work. He apparently took her to a grimy apartment and forced her to strip, raped her, absolutely destroying her hymen in the process. She said she was experiencing heavy bleeding, shoved foreign objects inside of her. Keep in mind, this girl was 16. She told me he was currently not in the apartment. He had taken her phone without knowing she had another one. Apparently, no one could hear her screaming for help, and she was crying hysterically. Goosebumps the entire time. The words she was saying, like rape and choking, sounded ridiculously foreign on her innocent voice. Officers reached her before he came back, and I was on the phone with her once they arrived. She's healthy and well right now. How no one heard her scream will always be a mystery to me. Monday morning. Guy on the other end sounds like he's been crying. He had swallowed a cabinet worth of pills. Attempted suicide, and changed his mind only after swallowing every pill in sight. This call fucking haunts me because the guy just sounded so defeated. I'm too scared to die, was what he kept whispering every time he'd stop throwing up. Ambulance was sent over. He then started sobbing about how he can't even kill himself successfully. Tells me about his daughter that passed away from cancer 2 years back. He talks about his wife leaving him. Throws up some more. Tells me about how ashamed his daughter would be if she saw him like this. He decides he wants to go all the way. He started swallowing a bottle worth of Valium. I'm trying to convince him not to. Futile attempt. Last I heard was the sound of him groaning while the paramedics put him on the stretcher. I don't know if he's alive or dead, and I don't want to know. Very shit day at work. Day of the Boston Marathon bombings. Not sure if anyone remembers, but initially it was believed to evolve into a chain of attacks. Office was tense. We were all basically waiting for hell to unleash. Get my first call of the day. Mentally prepare myself. 911, what's your emergency? Very thick southern accent. Sounded drunk or high. Yes, hello, I'd like to report a violation of human rights. Recover from the initial shock. Go ahead, sir. This here Walmart just broke the 12th Amendment. How so? He ranted for about an hour about how Walmart doesn't sell his favorite kind of beer. You need to understand how not in the mood for this bullshit I was. Sir, that has nothing to do with the 12th Amendment. Well, you ain't doing nothing, I will. I hear the sound of glass shattering. Freedom my ass! I assumed he just vandalized something in Walmart. He was arrested. Another suicide story. Sorry for the feels. Kid on the phone is panicking. 1 a.m. Couldn't be more than 7 years old. My sister's wrists are bleeding. She's asleep. Why isn't she waking up? This genuinely fucked me up. Parents weren't home. Had to make a little 7-year-old check whether his sister was alive or dead. I told him to put his hand over her mouth and nose to feel whether air is coming in or out. He says he feels nothing. Her lips are blue. Told him to wrap towels around her wrists and apply pressure. The ambulance were taking longer than usual. The little kid said she looked cold and lonely in the tub. I heard him run and grab something before heading back to the bathroom. He climbed in beside her and covered them both with a blanket. Ambulance came home to find this little kid snuggled beside her with a blanket wrapped around both of them. He was asleep and covered in her blood. I cried particularly hard that night, B. And that was all Anon wrote about his adventures of being a 911 operator and dispatcher. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you're wondering what that little pause was at the end of that last story, I had to actually pause and kind of collect myself because it did make me choke up a little bit. That last story was really sad, just envisioning something like that It's really hard hitting if you've ever like even had any thoughts of suicide and somebody has like said something to you along the lines of like, you know, your mother or your family or your brother or your sister will miss you. Just goes to show that, like, you know, shit like that actually does matter, and it does like really hurt people around you. And when kids are that young, you know, it affects them, and like there's no way you could ever even imagine how they would like cope with it mentally. But yeah, I just thought that last story was really hard hitting, so that's what that pause was. I didn't want to edit it out, but I didn't want to just leave it in there without touching on it at all. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit different from my usual style of videos, but I did want to kind of, I guess, branch out and kind of just cover more, kind of like you know, more of a broad spectrum of content rather than just limiting myself to specifically like a scope of only feels threads, because while I do like feels threads and everybody does like feels threads, a lot of them kind of tend to be super predictable and cheesy, with just, you know, Anon falls in love with girl who's out of his league, girl who's out of his league kills herself or dies of cancer, you know, something along those lines. But yeah, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be doing feels threads or anything anymore. It just means that I am just letting you guys know that I can do other content and other stuff like this. And I hope this video turned out well, and I hope you guys like it, and I hope the reception is good. And as always, thanks so much for watching, guys. Thanks for 8.7k subs. That's fucking wild. That's crazy. We're almost at 10k. We're gonna do some cool shit at 10k, so be sure to stick around, guys. And yep, this has been Dovahbruh. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.